Thank you. Back now to our 9/11 coverage and a personal story. Where were you on 9/11? It's a question that many of us ask and many of us answer. For me, a native New Yorker, the question usually includes, were you still in New York at the time? The answer is yes. In fact, on the morning of the attacks, I was with a friend whose father worked at the World Trade Center. Born and raised in Queens, New York, about 15 miles away from World Trade Center. That day, we were heading to college. We were heading to class. We went to school out on Long Island, probably about 30 miles, 35 miles away from downtown Manhattan. So I picked her up that morning. She lived at home. We were on our way to class when we heard the news on the radio. So we turned around, went back to her house because her dad worked in Tower 2. Phones went down. We couldn't speak to anyone. We couldn't get in touch with her dad. So I get in my car and I drive back to my mom's house in Queens. I then circled back to my girlfriend's house and we had heard from Ralph, her dad. And it turned out that he unfortunately lost his life on that day. The first time that I went to, that I saw the skyline was maybe a couple of days later because I couldn't see it from my house. I went and actually saw it. It was surreal, you know? It was like you grow up. I'm 22 years old at the time, 21 years old at the time, and I'm used to seeing these two big towers, you know, and now it's gone. You know, it didn't look like the same city. It was sad. You know, I mean, I think sad is an understatement. Life kind of moved on a little bit a couple weeks later, but it was sad. It was like a ghost town. You know, it's hard to describe Manhattan like that, but it was. And especially because Manhattan's broken into, you know, downtown, midtown, uptown. And the towers were in downtown. And you get to downtown and it was like you could hear a pin drop. And that's just not what I knew. On 9/12, there was this coming together. You know, there were American flags. There were, you know, you'd see a cop, you'd say thank you. You'd see a firefighter, you'd say thank you, because you knew what these guys and gals had gone through over the past 24 hours, 48 hours, what have you, you know. You knew that they knew people. You knew that if they weren't there, they knew somebody that was. So there was this gratitude that I don't think we've ever seen. There was this patriotic feeling that I don't think we saw before, and unfortunately, I don't think we've seen since. I like to think of America and New York the way it was post 9/11, even though you had this crazy, unfortunate attack happen. There was this camaraderie. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was surreal. It really was. It was something that I will never forget. And it was the news coverage of those attacks that made me want to be a television journalist, a job that would bring me here to Indiana, where I would go on to meet my wife and raise our 2 children. Life goes on, but every year we're reminded of what happened on that day and why we will never forget. 20 years. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like a lifetime ago. We'll be right back.